We're not here today to just talk about a fighter. We're here to break down a phenomenon. This is the story of Ronda Rousey, and it's really a case study in how one person can take the raw, chaotic energy of their struggle and refine it into an unstoppable intellectual force. And this story? It doesn't begin in a cage. It begins in a car.
Okay, so picture this. It's late 2008. The glow of the Beijing Olympics has completely faded, and it's been replaced by the harsh, fluorescent lights of a 24-hour fitness parking lot. Ronda Rousey is just 21 years old. She's an Olympic medalist, one of the best judokas in the entire world, and she's living in her Honda Accord. She's scrubbing her skin in communal gym showers before rushing off to bartending shifts, where the very same world that just cheered for her now treats her like she's invisible. This is the disconnect, right here, that would end up fueling a revolution.
$4. That's it. That was her rock bottom, the moment she felt completely and utterly invisible. Now, for most of us, that would be it, right? You'd feel defeated, like the world had completely failed you. But Ronda, she felt something else. She felt this searing, white-hot rage. And it was right there in that car that she had this profound realization. Being the best in the world isn't enough if you're playing by someone else's rules. You have to write your own.
But that decision, that choice to stop asking for a seat at the table and to just start building her own, it wasn't born in that moment. No, it was just ignited. To really understand the explosion that followed, what we call the Rousey Effect, we have to go back. We have to understand the elements that had been packed into this powder keg since the day she was born.
So here's our journey today. We've seen the Olympian in the parking lot. Next, we'll see how she was forged in silence and loss. Then we're going to decode her philosophy, the precision of rage, and break down her incredible system of domination. We'll watch her become a cultural supernova. And finally, we'll uncover the core lesson here, the absolute power in deciding to be heard.
So to understand the fire, we have to understand the friction. And Ronda's life, well, it began with an immense amount of it. This isn't just backstory, you guys. This is the operating system that would run everything she ever did. She was actually born with her umbilical cord wrapped around her neck, and it left her with a neurological speech disorder called apraxia. Now, I want you to imagine that for a second. Your mind is sharp. You have all these thoughts, all these feelings, but there's a broken wire between your brain and your mouth. The words just will not come out. So to the world, she looked slow, but internally, she felt like a volcano with no vent. It was a prison of silence, building up this unimaginable pressure from her very first moments.
And this timeline is just so crucial. Just as she was finally beginning to find her voice, her entire world shattered. At just 8 years old, she lost her father to suicide. And Ronda Rousey wasn't just her dad, he was her biggest believer. He was the one who looked at this quiet, struggling little girl and told her she was a world beater. His loss created this fracture in her world that would, honestly, never fully heal.
So how did her mother, Anne-Maria DeMars, the first American world judo champion, respond to all this? Well, there were no soft landings. She didn't teach Ronda to cope with a hostile world, she taught her to counterattack it. She would literally wake a sleeping Ronda by locking in an armbar just to teach her that you have to be ready to fight at any moment. The judo gym became her real home, a place where grown men would laugh if she cried. So what did she do? She learned to cry while throwing them. She learned that vulnerability wasn't some weakness to hide, but an explosive charge just waiting to be detonated.
All of this whole upbringing, it forged the central concept we're exploring. The Rousey Effect isn't about being tough or just being angry. It's so much more sophisticated than that. It's about the precision of rage. It's about taking all of that raw emotion, the frustration, the grief, that feeling of being underestimated, and turning it into a calculated, intellectual weapon.
Okay, let's really break this down. Raw rage. That's what most of us feel. It's impulsive, it's chaotic, it's totally unfocused. But Ronda's precision of rage was the exact opposite. It was clinical, it was geometric, it was unstoppable. See, she wasn't just fighting for a trophy, she was fighting to validate her own existence, using her vulnerability as a battery to power this highly efficient engine of destruction.
And a core part of this philosophy was her 1-minute rule. She wasn't preparing for some 25-minute war. She was preparing for a 60-second execution. The goal was to be so overwhelming, so technically perfect in that first minute, that her opponent's will would shatter long before their arm ever did. This was psychological warfare disguised as a sporting event.
And the crucial point here is this: rage provides the speed, but only precision provides the result. She saw judo as a series of geometric problems. An arm is just a lever, a hip is a fulcrum. Her goal wasn't some chaotic scramble. It was to execute a perfect, unstoppable equation. That aura of confidence you saw, it wasn't arrogance. It was the total absence of doubt, because she had already done the math. She knew that if she got her hands on you, the fight was over. Period.
Now, this philosophy wasn't just a theory, right? It was a physical reality built through an incredibly intense and obsessive system. If you walked into her gym during her peak, you weren't seeing some celebrity. You were seeing a ghost, totally and completely dedicated to her craft.
Her system was really built on 4 pillars. First up, deep isolation. Weeks before a fight, she'd just disappear. No phone, no social media, nothing. Just the problem of her next opponent. Second, hyper-specific drills. We're not talking about just practice. She'd take a single 3-second movement and drill it for 4 hours straight, until it was as unconscious as breathing. Third, master training. While everyone else was cross-training to be a jack of all trades, she focused on becoming the undisputed master of one thing. And finally, her no-weight philosophy. She built this functional, scary power almost entirely by resisting other human beings, creating a kind of strength an opponent could feel in every single clinch. And this number right here, it just illustrates her obsession, 50. That's how many different ways she drilled to get to her signature armbar. From a clinch, from a throw, from a scramble on the ground, it didn't matter. She had a pre-calculated answer for every single scenario. She wasn't hoping for the armbar, she was creating a system where it was the only inevitable conclusion.
And her genius was in how methodical it was. It was just a simple 4-step process burned into her DNA. 1, get the clinch. 2, execute the throw. 3, isolate the arm. 4, secure the lock. To the world, it looked like this explosive finish that came out of nowhere. But to her, it was just the final line of a proof she'd already written 1,000 times before.
So what happens when you combine that traumatic backstory, that precise philosophy, and that obsessive system? Well, you get an explosion. You get a result so powerful it doesn't just change a sport, it changes the entire culture around it.
February 23, 2013, UFC 157. This was the moment everything changed. For the very first time, 2 women headlined the biggest fighting promotion on the planet, and a lot of people, including the promoter, were skeptical. The world was kind of expecting a girl fight. What they got was a masterclass in controlled violence, technical grace, and just absolute dominance. Ronda didn't just win that night, she became a cultural supernova.
And this, right here, is her ultimate legacy. She completely transformed public perception. The image of the vulnerable girl was just replaced overnight with the baddest woman on the planet. She proved to millions of people watching that it was okay to be aggressive, to be rowdy, to be unapologetically dominant. She forced a sport that did not want women to become a sport that absolutely could not exist without them.
And this is where her story stops being about her and starts being about us. Because the Rousey Effect isn't just a biography, it's a roadmap for anyone who has ever felt trapped or underestimated or completely ignored.
I mean, just think about the poetic arc of her journey for a second. The little girl who literally could not speak, who lived in a prison of silence, grew up to become one of the most powerful, unignorable voices for an entire generation. She proved you don't need anyone's permission to be great. You don't have to calm down to be effective.
So I'm going to ask you, what is the armbar in your life? What is that one singular skill, that one unique obsession that you can master so thoroughly that the world has absolutely no choice but to stop and watch you execute? Don't just get mad at your circumstances. Refine that anger. Sharpen that frustration into a tool of precision that makes you undeniable.
Because her story teaches us all that being a champion has absolutely nothing to do with a medal or a belt. Those are just symbols. The real victory is something so much more fundamental.
It's about the decision to never be ignored again.